Millions of families across the country will stop receiving child tax credit payments this weekend after Congress failed to extend the program. The enhancement was a key part of President Biden's COVID economic package he signed in March. And now, without those payments, many lower and middle income families are expected to feel a sizable strain on monthly budgets moving forward. Depending on the age of children and family income, parents were receiving as much as $300 per child every month from July through December. It's important to note the child tax credit still exists, but it has reverted back to its smaller size and non-monthly status prior to this law. Data show that enhancement had a significant impact. The IRS says more than 300,000 children in West Virginia benefited from it last month. A Columbia University study found the enhancement lifted 3 million children out of poverty in July, the first month the change took effect. To discuss this, I want to bring in Stormy Johnson. She's a student support specialist for schools in Preston County, West Virginia, and a single mom of 3 children. Stormy, thanks for joining us. It has been just a month, but how has the absence of this program impacted your family so far, and what are your concerns for the months ahead?
Honestly, just with it being a month, I mean, it's already hitting because I was using that money to guarantee that I had food on the table for my kids and myself. So now without that, my kids know that I will do without to make sure that they have on a personal level. But from the professional level and what I do for my job, I know that that's also going to mean that more families are going to be reaching out for help with assistance for termination notices with utilities, for access to food pantries and that kind of thing, because with the child tax credits, they were able to actually, help themselves a little bit and not depend on the access to the resources that I'm able to provide them. Instead, they were able to do it themselves. And now that they don't have that, they're going to go back to having to access the resources that are in the community. And I'll see a lot more of the families struggling than we did prior this year because of the payments that started in July.
Stormy, I want to ask, what does that exactly look like? I mean, are we talking a carton of milk, less, in the refrigerator, less? I mean, just kind of break it down for us.
For myself, I'm talking, I don't qualify for SNAP. So that means days of meals that I'm going to possibly miss to make sure that my kids have it. I mean, it's not just something simple like a gallon of milk or a dozen of eggs.
Oh, wow. So the education system, we know you work in it. I'm wondering, last July, how did last year's child tax credit enhancement impact not only your family, but others in your community? I mean, what did people you spoke with tell you they were using that money for?
So many of the families that I spoke with used it for similar things that I did. I mean, some didn't get the clothing voucher, so they used it for school clothes. They've used it for vehicle payments. They've used it to put their kids into a sport that they were never able to afford because they didn't have the extra money. They've used it for necessities. We're using it for things that help us to help our children.
Both of your senators are opposed to the president's social and climate spending package, which includes extending this program. But only Democratic Senator Joe Manchin's vote is needed to pass it. What's your message to him?
I mean, it makes sense to pass it and to be able to provide families a resource that will allow them to help themselves. Helping families being able to help themselves are going to prevent a lot of the things that he's talking about in the ways that people are using them. If we have the money to provide for our children and access to the necessities, then we're going to be less likely to look for ways to cope with what we can't provide.
Do you believe the people in your state realize what's actually happening here with this non-vote?
I believe more so than not. There's several of us that have joined together in a lot of aspects to help bring awareness to that. So, I mean, the ones who are directly affected, they know, we know, and it might look like we're angry, but really we're heartbroken because we want to be able to provide for our children and do things on our own. And that hand up that was provided through the child tax credit is now being taken away, and we're going to have to be forced to depend on community resources.
As you said, a hand up, not a handout. Stormy Johnson, we are wishing you the best. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.